Oh my God, I'm a journalist. Why wouldn't I be interested in information overload? I am greedy. I am like a glutton. I want to read all the headlines. I want to read all the news analysis. I want to watch all the videos. I want to be on Twitter all day long. I want to read everyone's Facebook updates. I want it all. My name is Manoush Zomorodi, and I host a podcast here at WNYC Studios called Note to Self. It's a tech show, but it's more about the human side. As I spoke to cognitive psychologists and neuroscientists, they said, yes, the internet is limitless, right? There's so many wonderful things, but our brains are not. We're all swimming around in this vast sea of information. How do you not drown? How do you make sure that you cling on to what you actually need and you can say, you know what? I didn't read that other thing. I didn't need to today, and that's okay. So we did an interactive project with our listeners in 2015 that was called Bored and Brilliant. And this was a project where we got people to rethink their relationship with their phone, to see if they could jumpstart being bored, and to see if that would bring back creativity. For lots of neurological reasons and technological reasons, we're not as bored as often as we used to be. And one of the things that came up during that interactive project as we went forward, we asked our listeners, what are some other things that you want to maybe troubleshoot? Information overload came up a lot, and it is certainly something that I suffer as a journalist from, this idea that there are so many wonderful things out there that we all want to consume, and yet we feel completely overwhelmed by them. But I think that this, to me, is important because it's really what the new digital literacy is. It's not just about knowing where to go to find a trusted source online. It's very much knowing that you have to make choices in terms of setting your information goals, deciding when you've had enough, and giving yourself time and space to synthesize the information. 10 years ago, we used to switch tasks on average every 3 minutes, online, offline, back and forth. Now we do it every 45 seconds. So we are really testing our mental capacities to the point where, this is just an estimate, but about half of what we take in may not be used in any way. Half. And so that made me think well, what's the point of taking it all in if you can't do anything with it? Why not choose more carefully, more wisely about what you're taking in and put it to work in some way? One of the most effective things you can do is batch concepts. So let's say it's your job to know about 5 top stories. Don't switch back and forth between those different topics. Choose to read in all on one topic first, and when you're done, then switch to another topic and read in. Cognitive psychologists call this sticking to a schema, and that's been shown to improve cognition, synthesis of information, and memory. So that's a really easy thing you can do. Back to the neuroscientists, they know that when this sounds so obvious, but the to-do list actually works for your brain. The key thing is that you can only hold 4 to 5 things in your mind that you need to do. So if it's like, I gotta respond to my boss, I gotta update the Twitter feed, that's already 2 gone. Writing it all out, and then the key thing is prioritizing it so that you are not constantly having to make decisions. What am I doing next? What am I doing next? No, it's right there. It's right in front of you. The next thing is at the top of the list. Boom, boom, boom. Work your way down. That's when you get into a rhythm. That's when you start, it's like why President Obama only wears gray suits, right? The fewer silly decisions you have to make, the more you can concentrate on making the big, important decisions. There's a way that we can all budget our time more wisely, and we need to budget our time, because if we don't, the apps, the technology, and our bosses will take the time from us. Single tasking is doing one single thing until it is finished, and we are not judgmental. Read Facebook until you are finished. Note that you are done and move on. Don't do it at the same time. We know from neuroscientists that multitasking is actually a myth. What you are doing when you are multitasking is actually very quickly switching between tasks, right? Switch tasks, switch tasks. And when you do that, you actually use a little bit of glucose. And according to neuroscientists, there is a finite amount of that you have every single day. So if you decide, let's say you come into work and you open up email, and you also open up Facebook, and you're also texting with your mom. Every time you switch and every time you make a decision, you're using up the glucose. Switch, switch, switch. Should I answer this email? No, I'll come back to it. Let me just check. Oh, look what she put on Facebook. Oh my God, look at her dog. Like every time you're switching, you're using up those neural resources. And that explains why a lot of us feel so burnt out and exhausted by the end of the day. We have burned through our neural resources way before the day has finished. And I think that's also why a lot of us find that at night, what do? I know what I do. Scroll. I mean, for me, it's Pinterest. Other people, they go back on Facebook, scroll, and we're not even really looking at what we're doing. We're just kind of mindlessly taking in information, but we're not doing anything with it. Having been through burnout myself, I was a foreign news, breaking news producer for the BBC for a number of years, and this was even before the existence of social media, and I burned out hard. That's why I do a podcast now, because I couldn't go back to the grind. And I know now what I would have done differently then, which is be serious. When you are on vacation, you need to be on vacation. And when you're in it, the adrenaline and the thinking that you're so up on everything, it's very powerful. It is very intoxicating. But you need to come down from the high once in a while. And if you don't, this is my experience as a very type A, hard-driving foreign news reporter producer, that you'll burn out. The adrenaline, you can't keep it up for long. So what if each of us can find our own personal guidelines and rules for what makes us the most productive, purposeful, contented even? I'm not even going to bother with happy, contented. And I think that's a very personal choice that people have to make. Only you know what's right for you. And some people, we all have different capacities or set the bar at different places. But we don't know if we don't ask ourselves what that is. And in a world where we are constantly facing outward, I think it's very important to spend that time checking in with yourself. What are the signs? What are my signs for when I've had enough? And what do I do when I see those signs? The bosses are in the trickiest spot, right? In that they have two masters to serve. They need to make sure that their newsroom is running efficiently. They need to make sure they have the money to continue to run the newsroom efficiently. I think it's important to know that the science says that we do our best work when we do spend time not on the treadmill. And so if we can look at the data, at the science, at the stories that says we are our most productive selves when we actually spend some time being unproductive, strategically unproductive, that's where the bosses can say, I need to build this into the culture. I think I've learned by doing these projects with my listeners that I am more productive. I am a better journalist. I'm a better person when I do give myself time to think about what I've taken in. So for example, there's a Post-it note on my computer that says, it sounds so stupid, but it says, think more about what you read. And I used to go through the day sort of stuffing articles into my head, but how do you get to the meaning behind everything that you've taken in if you don't give yourself the space to think about it, to what is the definition of creativity, marrying two ideas that wouldn't have intersected otherwise. So yeah, sit on the subway and space out. Think about all the things that you took in, and then that's where the me part comes in. That's where I come up with an idea for an episode, or I think of someone I really want to interview that I want to get deeper down into it. And I think of an idea that, like, if I'm struggling with an issue, well, then that probably means that my audience is struggling too. That's when the most important work happens for me as a journalist. People have been talking about information overload since the 13th century, I learned. People complaining that there's too many wonderful things to take in. So this problem is not new in any way, but it is different and it is more urgent. And so being kind and generous to yourself about what you're capable of and giving yourself the space to enjoy information that maybe isn't making you a better journalist is important too, because it makes you a better person, and then you are a better journalist if you read a novel at night.